Your report is concluding that the world has entered a geopolitical recession.
Yeah.
Is it time to panic? Are we going to be okay?
It's time to worry. I mean, I'm an upbeat guy, as you know, and I've run the firm for 19 years now. This is, without question, the most negative geopolitical forecast that we've ever given. Economic recessions happen pretty frequently. We recognize a boom cycle, a bust cycle. Geopolitical recessions are much longer in duration.
About how long?
Well, I mean, the last one we had was World War II. And since then, we've had the Pax Americana, first by ourselves, then the Cold War, us versus the East Bloc, and then by ourselves again after 1991. And it's now over. It would have come to an end if Hillary had won, but it would have been over a longer period of time, and it would have been more gradual. And the Americans would have had a role at the table in what it would look like. But with the victory of Donald Trump, the shock victory of Donald Trump, which I certainly had not expected, and I think very few of us did, a year ago, this geopolitical recession happens immediately, and the world reacts to the unilateralism, the unwillingness of the United States to take on responsibilities of global leadership.
So is that what a geopolitical recession is? Is it the lack of leadership? And what are the consequences?
The geopolitical recession is the unwinding of the old global order.
I see. So it's a transition phase.
Yeah, and it's an interregnum, and it clearly is going to last for some time, but we are in it now.
Is it a time of great danger?
Well, so there are two ways I can answer that. The first is that a global economic recession, as we saw in 2008, really affects everybody's economies. A geopolitical recession clearly affects a lot of countries a lot more than it affects the United States. I mean, we don't have an arms race going on in the Western Hemisphere. We don't have border confrontations or conflicts with Mexico or Canada. We don't have a refugee challenge. We've talked about that before. We don't have a significant terrorist threat the way the Europeans do, the Middle East does, the Asians with border issues, with arms race, all of that kind of thing. So in that regard, you can easily imagine that the Dow, which is right now hovering just at 20,000 records almost every day, and all of the enthusiasm for the potential of additional U.S. growth, that is consistent with a geopolitical recession such as we're entering. On the other hand, if you had asked me at any point in the last 10 years, did I think that war between major powers was possible in the near horizon, I would say no. And I can't say that anymore. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's possible. Because
between which powers?
Well, first of the erosion of trust between major governments and the dissolution of strength of major multilateral institutions and architecture means that the guardrails are off geopolitically, so that if you have a mistake, if you have a crisis, if you have an accident and it escalates, it's harder to contain it. And so
like a nuclear reaction.
For example, I could see confrontation with North Korea much more likely in this environment, which clearly would have a disastrous economic set of impacts.
Conflict with North Korea or over North Korea?
Either. I mean, when Trump tweets that the North Koreans will be stopped from developing nuclear capability to hit the west coast of the U.S., there are only a couple ways he can accomplish that, right? He can either directly attack them, or he can put serious sanctions on the Chinese to ensure that they cut the North Koreans off, because they're not going to consider it otherwise. And either way.
What about a trade embargo around North Korea?
Well, I mean, it can't be. We're not going to impose it by ourselves. We would need the Chinese on board.
Absolutely.
They're not going to support that.
It's been floated, though, right? I mean, that is
by the Americans. not by the Chinese.
They're not going to go along with it.
They're not going to go with it. So again, we have to look at the art of what's possible. And so either he's throwing up a red line that he's going to fail on, like Obama did on Syria, right?
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem to be the way Trump wants to govern, or he really thinks that he can get this done, in which case there's a greater chance of confrontation. Now look, I mean, it's possible he just backs down, and it's possible that in the worst case, the Americans and Chinese still have clearer heads, and I think that those things are likely. But, all I'm saying is we're in an environment where clearly the geopolitics are far more dangerous. In fact, I would say, for the first time in my career, that I believe that the principal risks to the global economy now for the near-term future are political. Mm-hmm. Which has never been true.
Rather than economic.
And never been true in my history. Never been true.
So 20 years you've been.
I've been a political. I ran the firm for 19. I've been a political scientist since 86. So I mean that's like 30 years. That's a long time. So yeah, I mean that at least feels like a data point, right?